Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to give you some of my 5-star predictions. So it has been over a year since I have last filmed one of these videos, since it took me over a year to read those 5 books, but I have finally completed the last round of this video and I am ready to select 5 new books off of my shelf that I think are going to be 5-star reads. Now, I do struggle a little bit with this challenge. It may seem a little bit odd, but I don't often go into books thinking that they are going to be 5 stars unless I have read from that author before and given them 5 stars, or if they're continuations in a series that I have been enjoying. However, when it comes to this challenge, I prefer to select books from authors that I have not already read, which is the case with all 5 of these books that I will be sharing with you today. I, of course, would love your opinion on these books down in the comments so that I know which ones to prioritize, and it is a goal of mine to actually get to them in less than a year this time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first of the 5 books. So I want to go ahead and start with a book that I have actually selected already for my May TBR. So you saw a little bit of a spoiler for this video in my May TBR, so I figured I would go ahead and get this one out of the way, and that is Ander and Sante Were Here by Johnny Garza Villa. And this is a YA contemporary story. It is a queer story. We are following Ander, who is working at their family's restaurant. It seems that they are taking a gap year, and their family's hope is that they do a little bit more with their gap year than work, and so they fire them from their job, and in their place they hire Santi, who Ander finds incredibly attractive, and so the two of them start to form a relationship. However, things get complicated when ICE gets involved because Santi's family is technically not legally here in the States. I absolutely love coming of age queer stories, and I especially like when they have some hard-hitting themes in them as well, such as living in the States as an undocumented person. I have a feeling that this is going to balance queer joy with some very difficult and emotional moments. So far, I have heard only good things about this story, so I am very optimistic that I am absolutely going to fall in love with not just the story, but the characters themselves. Up next, we have a book that I feel like I'm continuously eyeballing, but am never actually putting on a TBR. However, the more I think about this book, the more I feel like I'm actually really going to enjoy it, and that is going to be The Sweetest Remedy by Jane Igaro. This is obviously a book of the month pick, and I'm trying to see when I went ahead and selected this back in September of 2021. I'm trying to remember when I actually got my book of the month subscription, if I bought this in the month that it came out or if I added it as an additional purchase, but either way, the cover of this book stood out to me, and I also like the fact that this book is not set in America. This book is following a young woman who has a Nigerian father who she never met, and one day she receives a notice that he has passed away, and it seems like she's being invited to his funeral in Nigeria, and so she sets off to meet this new side of her family, and while she is there, she also develops a romance with, I'm assuming, someone that's acquainted with the family. And I just feel like the story is going to have everything that I'm looking for in it. We have a woman who is potentially dealing with some complicated feelings about grieving for a father that she never knew. There's also the excitement of being in a place she's never been before and meeting people that are her family, but she's never met them before, maybe learning some more things about herself. I'm hoping it'll have a lot of warm, accepting family vibes, and then of course there will be a romance in it as well. So honestly, this seems to just have a lot going for it. Plus, it's not too long. I feel like it'll be long enough to pack in what I want without feeling like it's dragging. So hopefully this book that I've started to hype up more and more in my mind as I continue to fail to read it will live up to my expectations. I have to admit, I haven't really heard anyone talk about it, so I'm not really sure what people's opinions on it are, nor have I looked up its rating on Goodreads since I added it to my shelf. So we're going in blind, we're going off just vibes. And hopefully it all works out in the end. Up next, we have a book that I think will make me cry. And if a book makes me cry, chances are it is going to get 5 stars. And that is the Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arakawa. And this is translated from Japanese. I think this is a story that is relatively familiar to people. They have seen it making the rounds. And for the most part, it does leave people in tears. We seem to be following a man who is visiting his friends with his cat because he is looking for a new home for this cat, and we just follow them as he has all these discussions with his friends. And I believe it is told from the point of view of the cat, which I think will be really interesting. I'm hoping that this is kind of a character study where every individual is very different and very interesting, and just hearing the cat's opinions on these people will also be curious, as well as watching the cat as it tries to figure out why its human is doing what he's doing. Like I said, I have a feeling I know what's going on, which will definitely leave me in tears by the end of this book, but I am hoping that it has some beautiful writing as well as just giving you lots of insightful quotes throughout the story. Second to last book, we have another book that I think could potentially make me cry. I've heard that people get emotional about her reads sometimes, and that is going to be Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I have never read this author before, but I've definitely heard wonderful things about her work, and out of all her books, I felt like this one would work the best for me. I'm still not super into sports romances, and it seems like she has a few of those, and she also has some Hollywood based ones, which Hollywood isn't always my favorite setting, but this one is honestly giving me 7 Days in June vibes by Tia Williams, which is why I think that I will give this 5 stars, because I gave that 5 stars and it's sitting up here on my all-time favorite shelf. So in this book, we seem to be following a couple that was married. They had kids, at least one kid, and they decided to go their separate ways but continue to co-parent. And as they're co-parenting, I believe that they start to rekindle their love for each other. So this is kind of like a second chance romance between the two of them. I want to say something rather traumatic had torn the two of them apart. So just watching these people as they rebuild themselves and their relationship while simultaneously raising their children, trying to be good people for their children, is just going to be really wonderful to read. I have a feeling she's going to handle it very well, considering how many people like her work. I find it hard to believe that her writing is bad or anything along those lines. So I'm hoping that this gives me all the feels plus a very deep and meaningful and loving relationship between these two characters. I'm very excited to try this author, and hopefully I, like everyone else, become a Kennedy Ryan fan, and I'll give some of her sports romances a try then. And the last book on here was kind of a last minute ad where as soon as I heard about this book and I added it to my list, I felt like it was just going to be something that worked really well for me. So fingers crossed that, you know, this vibe I picked up is real. And that is World Running Down by Al Hess. So this is a post-apocalyptic story featuring a trans main character, which is something that I've read before and really did quite enjoy. We seem to be following a young trans man who is living out kind of in the wastelands, and they have a dream of being allowed into the city, because if he is in the city, he is able to get the surgery that he needs to have the body that he wants, because he's currently suffering from body dysmorphia. He is given the opportunity to win his way into one of these cities when a AI approaches him and lets him know that some old androids have gone missing and that they need help finding them. And our character is a scavenger in these areas, so I'm assuming they're really familiar with the area and where to look for missing items and whatnot. However, as our character and this AI are moving through their task, they not only start to develop feelings for each other, but our character starts to wonder if they have the right to steal other people's freedom, these androids' freedoms, who seem to have developed more human emotions in exchange for his own happiness. So I think that this is going to be a thought-provoking book, and it'll also have some romance in it. It'll also have some discussions about artificial intelligence and what makes one human and what one is willing to sacrifice to get what they want, who they're willing to hurt to do it. And I think it'll be set in a very interesting setting. I usually do enjoy kind of the wastelands of a post-apocalyptic book, especially when it comes to possibly having like underground markets and scavenger markets and all that jazz. I think it'll be rather exciting, as well as potentially sweet, heartwarming, and maybe even a little bit heart-wrenching. So I am super excited to read this book. I haven't heard too many people talk about it other than the one person I got the recommendation from, obviously, but I am really excited to read this book and share my thoughts on it, and hopefully, if it's good, to get some more people to pick it up as well. All right, guys, so these are the 5 books that I think are going to be 5-star reads for me. Luckily, I am going to be reading this one this month, so we'll see if I start on a high note or a low note, but honestly I cannot foresee myself not liking this book. But the rest of them I will definitely be trying to squeeze onto my TBR over the next few months. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I would love to know your opinions on any of these books. I would also love to know what book on your shelf or at your library you think is going to be your next 5-star read. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!